What was the nicest thing someone has done for you? When I was about 13, the pastor of our family church heard me practicing chopping on the piano. Knowing my parents couldn't afford it, he offered to pay for my music studies, organ, piano, music theory and ear training, so that I'd be prepared to enter music conservatory after high school. All he asked for in return was that I'd help out with the church's music program when needed, which, in itself, proved to be a wonderful learning experience. This kind, generous man spent thousands of his own money to help me along the way to a rewarding career in music. Username checks out. When my parents were awful and my sister was butting away, my friend's parents took me in for a while, but they did it in a way that seemed like a sleepover for a few months. I didn't realize until I was an adult how much they stepped up for me. That is amazingly sweet of them. I hope you're still close with them. Sadly, we moved a few years later. I stay as close as I can, but admittedly not as close as I should. I'm going to call them right now. For those asking for updates, I talked with friend's mom and dad for about 30 minutes. They are doing great and were excited to hear from me. Friend's dad retired a few years ago, and my old friend now has a few kids and the grandbabies keep them busy. As a point of interest, I called the same landline that I called in 1989 to talk to my friend, and they answered. Before anyone asks, I have a knack for numbers and remember most people's phone number and address from pre-1995 when I got a cell phone. Amazing. Well done for calling them. I bet they were thrilled to hear from you. My mother died, and I was so stressed trying to find a way to give her the funeral she deserved. My boyfriend went down to the funeral home, made the arrangements, and paid the balance. By far the kindest thing anyone has ever done for me. I had something similar happen to me, except it was an old friend who'd come into a lot of money that paid for the funeral. I was so profoundly touched by the gesture that I returned the favor and killed him so that I could pay for his funeral as well. That was so thoughtful of you. And people say chivalry is dead. Turns out he is, and his funeral was paid for. My firstborn had a severe deformity and spent a week in hospital before we took him off life support. I was staying at the Ronald McDonald House, and even though one of the rules was that you are your own maid when you leave, complete with doing laundry and remaking the beds, I was a complete wreck. A kind stranger took care of my room for me, even though they were going through their own stuff. Another blessing from that dark time is that the funeral home took care of everything for me, including all bills associated with the service and cremation. I will never not donate to the Ronald McDonald House, and I know what funeral home I'll be using when I one day need one again. This is touching to read. I also have very fond memories of staying at the Ronald McDonald House. If anyone ever wonders if they should donate to the RM House, yes, do it. It is such an amazing charity. I've had 10 open heart surgeries and plenty more where they had to blow up my stent through an artery. My family has stayed in my RMH many times. I've spent the nights before surgery there too. I always donate when I can. Literally, the Ronald McDonald House is the only charity I absolutely go out of my way to support. I went to a local breakfast spot after a rough night. Totally forgot my wallet, so I left my phone as collateral and went to my house. Came back and some guy had already paid for me. I know it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but it was a pretty bleak week for me, so it meant a lot. Kinda similar story, where I left my wallet in my friend's car before I switched back to my car, and only found out after I filled up at the gas station. Guy servicing the pump knew me as a regular and said it's all good and put his own money at the register. Paid him back the next day plus extra, and now just butting by the gas station gets my mood up. I needed a tire. Only one shop in my area had the size I needed. This was a fairly new shop that I had never been to before. I backed my truck into the bay and the dude comes over. I asked in my best Spanglish if he takes debit cards. He did not. I told him never mind and went to get back in my truck. He stops and tells me THST I can have the tire and to come pay him the next day. This man had never met me before, but I'd go back the next day and pay him plus $5 extra for being a cool guy. My ex-girlfriend turned me in for stealing opiates. Been clean a little over 2 years now. May have saved my life. So did she turn you in on malicious intent or to make you go clean? In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it matters because the result is unequivocally positive. Someone ran out of their home and gave me water to drink after I fell from the bike. It's not really that bad other than a few scratches to the side, but it's nice to see people helping out. The aqua paramedic strikes again. Broke your arm. Here's a cup of crisp, cool refreshment. Gunshot wound. Have a bottle of water. Stroke. Hold your arms up to test for drooping. And then have this swig of sparkling. If you're gonna be wounded, you'd better be wounded and hydrated. I had really shitty periods when I was a teenager. They still kind of suck a lot, but they were at their absolute worst when I was about 15 to 17. One day, I was at school and my period started a few days early. I knew I didn't have long before I was going to be in a world of pain. But I had one last but before the school day was over and I could go home. And I lived about half an hour away from my school, so I decided it was pointless to call home and have someone pick me up because I would have had to stick around for most of my but anyway. While I waited for my ride, my school had block scheduling, so it was still going to be a 90-minute but whatever. So I just put on a pad and hoped for the best. Not long after I went to my but I could already feel the pain getting intense. I tried not to squirm or do anything else distracting while my teacher was giving her lecture. But eventually she noticed that I looked extremely distressed and asked what was wrong. Since I went to an all-girls school, I felt comfortable saying that my period had just started and so I wasn't feeling well. Suddenly, the whole room sprang into action. One girl asked if I needed a pad or tampon. Another girl got permission from the teacher to grab mid-all from her locker. At one point, I dashed out of the bathroom to the nearest bathroom to puke, and a friend who was in my but followed me to the bathroom to hold my hair out of my face. After all of that, I went to the office and called home to have someone come and get me because I knew I really couldn't wait it out until the school day was over. The secretary let me stay in the lounge area outside the office, which was nice because the chairs were pretty comfy and I was already really sore at that point. One of the girls from my but asked if it would be okay for her to stay with me as I waited for my ride home because she knew I lived relatively far away, so I was going to be there a while. She and I weren't super close. I wouldn't have said we were friends because we didn't hang out in the same friend groups and we didn't have a lot of buds together the entire time we were in high school. But she was really sweet for wanting to stay with me, and so we spent the next 30 to 40 minutes just sitting and talking, which was easily the longest time I had ever talked with her. That day will always stick out to me. It was really touching how everyone in my but showed so much concern for me and wanted to help, even if they didn't really know me all that well. We all need to look out for one another, you know? This is beautiful. In August of my freshman year of high school, a guy said nice shirt to me. I've been hanging on to that for like 4 years. LMAO. I'm a man and I have one particular shirt that like 5 people, both men and women, have said nice shirt to. You better believe that it's my go-to for first dates. I have a jacket like that. Blue corduroy. I can't imagine wearing anything else on a first date. My wife, she stayed with me, even when I was a duckhead. I second this. My wife saved me from drug addiction and all around douchebaggery. I definitely don't deserve her. I'm glad she did. Hope you're both very happy. Thanks, Captain. We are extremely happy. Compared to what I used to be. We have a young one now, 14 months next week, and she gives me fulfillment like nothing else on this earth. That's amazing news. But if congratulations, mate. Kids are oddly the best. Never felt so brave and scared at the same time before. I wish all 3 of you nothing but kick butt times ahead. It's a cool journey, this life. Glad you're here. Sorry for shifting the frame of the question to nicest thing someone I know has done for someone else. My brother took a fellow band nerd on a high school graduation road trip for several weeks. Thing is, the friend was dying of leukemia and they both knew that this was going to be his first and last road trip. No timetable, Just one day at a time across the breadth of the US. That's beautiful, man. Your brother will never forget that his whole life. I hope his friend died just the way he hoped. I have an online friend in another country, and one time she made a cake for my birthday with my name on it because she knew no one else would do anything. Did she eat it in front of you? No, she just sent me a picture. Then she ate it, right? My grandmother made a ton of birthday cards in advance. After she butted away, I still received birthday cards from her for the next few years. It was a little weird, but it was definitely nice to hear words from her after she butted. My mother did this. She died of cancer when I was a child. It was nice because the cards even matured in a way with the advice I got at 21. The last card being very different and more age appropriate than the advice I got at 7. I want to do something like this, but way more elaborate, with multiple people receiving regular communications, side quests, packages, attempts on their life, etc. It will be like I never died. One of these is not like the others. Why would you give out side quests? That's what fringe NPCs do. My brother took me in when I couldn't live with my parents anymore, and he helped me sober up, deal with my depression, and change my lifestyle. There is nothing I could ever give him in return for all he's done for me. These comments are restoring my faith in humanity. r/humansbeanbrus. One of my high school bullies invited me to his house to hang out for a day. I was really nervous it might just be to screw with me, but I was desperate for some sort of friendship, so I went over. We are now best friends and he and his family feels like family to me, and I have no idea how we ever disliked each other. My parents supported me all through my education. This is a big deal and a really important part of parenting. I'm glad you understand the value. While many who read this will think that's what parents are supposed to do and move on, I see it differently. My parents, especially mother, were threatened by my education. Yes, I was able to live at home while I attended school, but they had zero interest in my goals or aspirations, and even criticized my course of study at the time, telling me I'd be horrible in that profession. My sister and I often talk about what could have been if only we had support and encouragement all those years ago. Was having a panic attack. Swung between so euphoric I thought I was going to ascend and terrified that I was going to die for certain. Called my loved ones to say goodbye, including my best friend. He came running from a block away. He was terrified too, but he held it together, sat me down, hugged me, told me that he didn't want me to go anywhere, that he needed me right here. I needed that. I needed to see what I felt wasn't based on reality. Needed someone to say that I should not obey those feelings because I was needed and loved. On some level, he saved me. Years later, he voluntarily went into homelessness just to fly out to see me on another continent. Yes, we are together now. No, I don't know how I got so lucky. We are planning the wedding. Close bracket. Oh god. I love this. Me too. I was involved in a hit and run on my bicycle in Chicago. I broke my collarbone, first broken bone, and a stranger drove me to the ER. I was going into shock and freaking out about finances. I'm a single mother and 2020 is the worst year. The stranger gave me her number for the police report and such, and later sent me $5k because she knows what it's like to be a single mother with nothing. I sobbed. I hadn't gotten my unemployment yet and still haven't gotten a stimulus check. I was overwhelmed by her kindness and I will never forget it. This one makes me want to cry. I hope to be in a position to help someone like that someday. I hope I'm too, but also hope that the system changes so that the generosity of strangers is not the only hope you have. A paramedic helping me after I was in a car crash took his time to come back to the car and bring me back my front tooth that was really tiny, and he offered to go and look for it in a wreck, and at the same time found and brought back my partner's phone. I don't know his name. I was in such a state of shock I can't even remember how he looked like, but he put my tooth in a special liquid and the hospital team managed to put it back, saving me a lot of money. There was also a policewoman who put a blanket on me and made sure I kept it. The hospital only managed to take it off me right before I left. It was a green standard first aid blanket. I don't know why I refused to let go of it. Again, shock. But it provided a lot of comfort. Thank you so much, guys. During my physics Master of Science there was a terrible prof for two of my core buds, terrible at teaching, but also known for complaining at faculty meetings how the grades had been going down in his buds ever since more women started taking them. I put in a ton of work anyway, and despite all that he gave me 2 Ds for those 2 buts. I've legit never heard of someone getting Ds in grad school and finishing and was convinced my road was done. At that point I told a prof who had been supportive what happened, and he got me a stiff drink to talk over, in which he said that technically there was no requirement for buds to take, it was just take the stuff that helps you bud the qualifier. But this guy's buds clearly weren't doing that, so instead he told me to sign up for 2 independent study buds, which he would supervise, and all I would be doing is practice questions for the qualifying exam. This varies, but basically in my depth it was a 2-day written exam to get the Master of Science and go on to do a PhD on everything in physics. So we did exactly that. I studied, and we would meet up a few times a week to go over problems. By the end of the semester, I took my quals and butted with margins to spare. Today I'm a postdoctoral fellow in astronomy at Harvard, which never would have happened if that prof hadn't taken a chance on me and put in so many hours to help me. It makes me so determined to help all the students in my path and mentor them well, because people can be capable of so much more than one bad prof thinks they are. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.